you have to find something that really brings you joy and something you can sort of lose yourself in for hours, because you might have to be building this for a while. It doesn't happen necessarily overnight. So being passionate about what you're offering, let's say you want to start some kind of agency or consultancy or, solopreneur path, really diving into what the topic is and then how well you connect with it is, I think, the most important thing.
Step into the world of success with Your Brand Amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am absolutely thrilled to get into a conversation today with Rósa Parker, a transformational coach who helps changemakers lead with clarity, confidence, and storytelling. That is something that we all need more of. We need to understand how to show up as our best selves when we know that we want to create change, how to understand how we're put here to create change, what that pathway looks like, and then how to inspire and motivate and collaborate with others. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's so lovely to meet you.
Likewise. I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. I know you've created a method. You also have some different certifications, but take us down the road from being a theater major, I believe, at university into finding your true calling.
I believe I've come sort of a full circle in a way. Yeah, I started in theater, went to University of Washington, and that was just a big deal for me because I grew up in Iceland. So it was kind of a stretch to go to the States to the university. But I'd, seen the movies and I was like, what is that? Everything seems so free and fun over there. Iceland was very sort of spare and austere during that time. When I'm growing up, it's different now. It's gotten so popular just with tourists and so on. So I ended up making it, going to the University of Washington and studied drama and graduated as an actress. And very early on, I started to write my own material. I didn't always get the roles that I wanted, and I didn't always like what I got. And I'm also still in Seattle, and it's sort of, I'm very not American, and I have an accent, and I had an accent, and that was sort of a problem. And, so there are all these complications. So I'm just starting to write my own. I did a solo show that was off Broadway. So I went to Iceland and then to New York.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So there, I find myself with that sort of entrepreneurial spirit, putting together a show and writing my own material. And out of that, I started to write more. I wrote a couple of comedies that went to some theater festivals and universities. And then the storytelling I continued, but after like 15 years in the sort of a struggling as an actress and in the theater life, I was ready for something else. And I found myself getting a job at Nordstrom in marketing. So I became, my first job was marketing coordinator. And it was such a great thing for me, sort of get that, corporate inside, and there's certain polish that comes with it. And a lot of women work there. And I just learned a bunch. And I loved it too. And I was in high-end fashion, was couture and designer. And there's so much art and storytelling just in that itself. And then we moved to New York, my husband and daughter and myself. And with that marketing experience, I sort of continue in that. And I start to work for advertising agencies here in the city and some in-house, mainly freelancing. Was maybe 1 year in one job. Otherwise, it was sort of a few months. I was with an agent, that sort of freelancing agent, and did all these different jobs. And it always ended up being sort of the high end, like luxury hotels. And it was always in the high end because I had, polished that voice while I was at Nordstrom and sort of kept with that, Nobody was going to hire me to write copy for tech or for cars or something like that, or pharmaceutical. That was better paid. But I also like the storytelling of the lifestyle stuff. That I enjoyed that, and I still do. So then we come into the pandemic, and that's when my job evaporated with, I'm doing rebranding for a hotel in Bahamas, and I'm working with a small boutique Icelandic hotels at that time. So that just went away overnight. And who knew when that was going to come back? So you sort of like many, many, many people pivoted as well, or sort of stared at the wall, I think, for a couple of months. Like, what am I going to do? And it was so heavy in New York. It was weird. I mean, it was heavy globally.
But New York was a special place. I went there because actually I had a client during the pandemic who was going around and doing culturally competent, community-based COVID testing. So we went to, yeah, so we went to Queens during the pandemic. So going on the plane, wearing double masks, like the masks they wear, the big shield they wear in the ER, nobody in the airport, wearing like 5 layers of protective gear, getting there, seeing what it was like. Yeah, New York was unlike, I think, anywhere else.
Yeah, that's what an incredible experience for you to nobody wanted to come here during that time. Everybody was running out. So yeah, so that out of that though, I joined some really cool online community mastermind for like marketers and copywriters. And out of that, I started to create this framework because I still had the same question that I had as an actor, I had as a marketer. I was like, how can we connect the dots going forward to create a decision-making format where we're always sort of aware of we're not just sort of basking forward in life without always knowing where we're going, but we can always look back and make sense of things afterwards. But I really wanted to create that. So I went back to the structure of film and plays, the 3-act structure. And in that is like everything. So you sort of, yeah. And then I created, you start when you work with me, it's called Evoke. And we go like we're sort of studying you in a way. You sort of are finding new curiosity about yourself, where you came from and where you go. And we talk about your knowledge and your values and what you want, your image. It's the whole package. And that's almost like character work in that way. And when I speak to actors, I mentor here at NYU. And when I talk to actors, they often know much more about themselves than the character they're playing. Like they know so much about the character, they've done all the work. But we just take ourselves so for granted, and we're often, so low on the list. But doing this sort of all the questioning, and it comes out to a paragraph, like a little story that is yours, and it's very different than a typical bio. It's sort of it's bending and divergent thinking. And so you take that story and you put it into your film script, and this is your cold opening. And then you start to create your film. So now you are sort of a player and author in your own life. And then we go through the storyboard, and it's so effective, and it's also fun, which is important to me.
I was going to say, I mean, there's other, taking people through their brand blueprint and things like that, right? But the way that you have couched this and created this sounds a lot more fun, right? It doesn't sound like, oh, I have to sit down and figure this and this out. It's like, oh, I get to actually like look at because how many of us look at our lives and go, is this real life? Is this a story? Why is this what's happening right now? It's sometimes things are so comedic or joyful or sad that we feel like we're in a film. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Might as well just then direct it, direct and write your own film. And because of all this, we're in such a digital era, and we're always looking at some kind of a story or image, and it's all external because you're looking at the other people, what they're doing on their Instagram or, whatever they're doing their thing, TikTok. But if you flip it and you give yourself so much, you earn so much more control over your own life and your storytelling and where you're going. And it becomes just so much richer than constantly, which I think a lot of people have gotten themselves into, constant comparing and admiring images and other people's lives that they know nothing about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why trends on social media get so popular, because people are like, oh, that looks cute. I'm going to show that I can also be cute doing it, or I can show that I can do this dance, or whatever the case may be, or I want to be part of this trend so I can get noticed more. But you're talking about going within, being really authentic to who we are, not just looking at the outside noise, but truly understanding what makes us different, special, and being able to share it with the world in a unique way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And have more agency and authority in your own life. So you're not just a follower. You create things that are completely, deeply authentic and original. And the word authentic is sort of thrown around, cheaply nowadays. But if you dive into the authenticity of it, like you are actually speaking from your own authentic voice. And what I do, I have a thread that I take into this, and that's heart intelligence. So I help people connect the heart with the brain. And so you speak from more of a like intuitive or your inner intelligence. You tap into that voice as well when we are in coherence, which just means being, your nervous system is parasympathetic when you are, aligned. Everything is aligned and your brain is connected to your heart. And then you have all this truth and originality just oozing. But when we're in the sympathetic nervous system, then we're just in that, fight or flight and stressed and copying and following and, but turning it around, life takes on a whole new meaning when you can be the director of your own life.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation in different words yesterday and discussing how when you are in alignment with exactly what you're supposed to be doing and what feels, like you said, everything's connected, then so many opportunities appear. The right opportunities, not the ones that are the shiny objects that you're like, oh, maybe I'll do this because I need extra money, or, oh, maybe this will help me get connection. But things that you can even hear my voice, you don't get as excited about. Versus the things that really light us up are really like who we are meant to be and what we're meant to be doing. And then out of that comes joy and comes abundance.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you said right there, those opportunities, they come because you are aligned and you create energy that, people feel. They might not understand it, but they will feel something like this person is really aligned and original and authentic, and they're creating something. They're doing this, they're doing that. And there's something about them. I just can't figure it out because they're really aligned and true to themselves. And then we also, when people are really stressed and insecure, and insecurities because they just haven't done the work, we're all the same in a way, like we can all do this. Then we feel this sort of the insecurity, stress. It's uncomfortable, can be very uncomfortable energy to be around, and it's not the place you should be making decisions, because I also work with corporate and teams, and this is huge to when it comes to decision making, and also to deliver your, if there's changes or whatever in a team meeting, how you deliver that. It's really important that you're aligned. And then there's the meta moment that I also like, this story mapping. There's also deliver your news, your information in a sort of a storytelling form, because then your audience, your team connects with you on a more emotional level and see you as a human being and take in the information differently.
Wow. So I love that you're working in so many different areas because, of course, there is implication for individuals, but then when it comes to being, and I'm actually teaching a class on digital leadership right now, and we talk every week, we talk about different techniques and different types of leadership and what they mean for the world. And we'll discuss leaders in the world of digital media. And then the students are now working on their final projects, which is their own leadership style and being able to present that. So what you're saying goes so hand in hand. And I love the fact, though, that you talked about the storytelling and really story mapping to make sure that you are sharing in a way that other people will also understand and brings them along. And that shows your vulnerability, perhaps.
Yeah, it humanizes the person delivering. Yeah, absolutely. Because we just tune out, and now it's our attention span only gets smaller in a way.
Really?
I know. But when it's in a story form, then people are paying attention because they will see the images themselves from the words you're saying when you're telling a story.
Yeah. So then what happens after somebody works with you? I mean, I'm sure a number of things, but what are some of the ways that they best portray and share these stories about who they are? Is it social media? Is it speaking, podcasting, even writing?
Yeah. So the clients, the person that, yeah, they, you mean after working with me, how they, what really happens is just so much clarity. And there's certain fear that we all have and we just carry around. And once people have gone through their story and sort of understood where they came from, where they're going, their knowledge and just their abilities, there's certain fear that just kind of goes away. Like we don't have to, it's something we might all wake up with, but then people have the tools to diminish that, the fear factor, that because the fear factor is often the aspect where we make decisions out of fear. Like that's very, very human and common that we do that. But once you have these tools, so that's one, that's sort of a clarity or authority. And then just aligning, everything sort of aligns because the awareness that comes with it, then things do start to happen. New opportunities change, come in, and you meet, different people, and then some of the people that sort of maybe do not serve you or you them anymore, sort of go away, and it's just like dropping a pebble in the water, and you can see it the multiply the effect. It really is very well rounded. I feel like when whether it's my technique or someone else, but when you go through that, you go through your organize your life and you see where everything is at. It's a different management with your own energy. And so, yeah, and people, I mean, people share it in different places. I am so not good about that. I recently changed my offboarding. So now I'm, starting to collect more testimonials, and those are great to share. I was pretty bad about that at first. Still some artist in me that,
Yeah,
had
let's
to clean
rebel.
up. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah. But,
Yeah.
it's just massively important to have this organizing system in your life because that all reflects externally.
So, how has this work changed your life?
Yeah, that's it. It's very organized in that way. Other than those testimonials, no, it's all coming along. I feel like confidence for sure, and also there's definitely, I don't worry about validation. I don't need validation anymore. So I think that's maybe the biggest thing that come out of it. I don't need that because I know what I can offer people and they're happy and that lifts them and helps them. And so validation, when we're seeking that, that's a sucker. That's a annoying thing. And I would say that was not that long ago, maybe a year ago that I really started to see that come through, that I didn't need the validation anymore. And then there's a certain certainty, actually. Yeah. This confidence and certainty that when you know something works, then you can really lean into that and, yeah, not carry some unnecessary stress or nervous thing
Right. Or imposter syndrome.
or that. Yeah.
It is amazing because I've seen myself come more and more into alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing and really honing in on that. And the more I do that, exactly what you're saying, the more great things happen. And I can look at what I've put together and say, I don't, yes, I know a lot of other people do something similar, but they don't do it the way I do. They haven't done the type of research I've done exactly. And they don't have the formula that I've been able to figure out because I've had the highs, the lows, gone through all of this to get here. So I feel very confident. And it's amazing how then people appear in your life, even though you haven't even announced perhaps that you offer a new service. This is what's happening to me right now. And people are asking for it anyway before you even, so it's just the energy and the assurance, the self knowledge, right?
Yeah. The
That
energy
bringing them.
attracts.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
So it's truly amazing. So what was it, or why was it important for you to get additional certifications? Because you have the method that you created. You also, right, have a couple of certifications and the Heart Math mentor. You're a copywriter think tank mastermind graduate. You have a couple of others as well.
Yeah. I'm just a forever student.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just forever student. I'm always, I can, 10 hours can go by if I'm diving into something. I'm grateful for my curiosity. That's what I'm here talking to you right now because curiosity is what brings me, and it gets me up in the morning. And, it's like, instead of using discipline, I think for me, it's like curiosity is the discipline. So always, yeah. And when you are sort of shaping your work and changing it, and, being this entrepreneur since I knew what the word meant, it was so exhausting when I always wanted to learn something new. And I thought I was kind of a flaking, or I didn't know who I was. And I thought I was so unstable in that. And then later on, I understand my journey. And so seeking more knowledge makes perfect sense. And of course, I will never stop. And Heart Math Institute is just an incredible institution with over 30 years of science-backed research. So when, you and I are talking about energy, it's not some pseudoscience, it's actually science. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how more and more people are realizing that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody on the podcast about the fact that even it is now proven scientifically that we, the genetics that we do have memories from our ancestors. So things that we may feel might not even be our own traumas or our own reactions. They may have come from generations ago. And that's wacky to think about in some ways, but it's real, and it's science. It's not just woo woo. So
absolutely. I love that, thinking about that. And I don't know about you, but I've been sort of going through my triggers, what triggers me, and I live in a very busy city. You have to be such a badass, just to walk around in a way and get your things done, and, running errands, everything, by foot, and going into the dirty subway. I mean, there are just things that are just not glamorous. But understanding, where we get triggered is really interesting. So I've been sort of testing myself in that. And, I can get very triggered when people are right behind me talking and they're getting too close. I feel like they're, in my space. So just instead of getting annoyed, I just easily step aside and let them go by. It's the easiest thing to do. But before, I'll be like,
mm-hmm. But those
why?
simple things are actually pretty big.
They are, yeah, because they waste so much energy. And then we feel, triggered for very minor reasons. But, maybe that's something from my past life that I got, with the people coming too close, especially behind.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I love this conversation because I like conversations where we're talking like we were friends having coffee, right? Sharing ideas. And so I want to talk about that aspect of storytelling because as a podcast host and as a college professor, I do have students who might not feel comfortable sharing in class, or I have guests who really, maybe they're starting their journey and they don't understand the richness of, it's not just about your company and how great your company is. It's about how you got there. It's about the hard parts as well and the things that you learned, because that's what really inspires people to believe that they can do it too. So how do you help people realign and rewrite their story into what it should be versus what the idea they have in their head of, because a lot of people I think have this idea, you can only show the positive, you can only show the success, you don't show everything else that happened to get here.
I know. Isn't that sad though? Because then it's not believable if it's all, perfect.
And it's a harder interview, honestly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. So what I do, like can just sort of walk you through some of the bullet points where we go and dive into our story. So, for example, we start with our roots. So evoke means earth, values, objectives, knowledge, and essence. So earth is the root part. So going into where you came from and how you feel about your birthplace and what role you played in your family and what was happening in the world when you entered the earth. So these kind of things that give you something that feels like stability, like really owning where you come from. And there's a lot of shame often with people where they came from, or some family patterns, and that's okay. But taking it out of our heads and sort of looking at it, there's healing in that. Because there's so much healing in authenticity. In the process of authenticity is healing. So just that step is, huge. And then going into the values, like what were the values that you grew up with? your parents might not have called them values, but there were, or your caretakers rules. There were certain things, expectations. I grow up with, work ethic is, very important, and also the treating everyone the same, the janitor like the CEO, and so on. And that's a gift. And my mom was very adamant about not being lazy, to the point that I'm still shaking. Like, I can't watch TV in the daytime, even if it's a Saturday. I'm like,
I
come on,
can't
girl.
either.
Really? Yeah.
I always
I'm
feel
like,
like I'm supposed to be I need to be, well, there's so much stuff to do. I need to organize this. I need to do the laundry. I need to do the dishes. I need to, yeah.
I know that's like, but I'm getting better about that, just because I'm thinking like, hey, if you work for yourselves, a lot, and you can also carve out times. And if you are, sometimes I'm working on a Sunday, preparing the week or writing a script or whatever. I'm doing this video, I'm filming everything now, the evokes. So we're filming a video series so people can, if they're not working with me, they can do it, just, it will be on demand. Yeah. So back to sort of taking people through their story. And so if you think about that, going through the values and understand what they are, and then looking at the objective part, like your goals and dreams, they're often very, very different. So help people sort of merge that. And the dreams are often up here, very, very shiny. The goals are sort of almost like a shopping list or like a checkoff list, something they believe they can accomplish. They're not believing in that sparkly dream, but they believe in the. So finding a merger there, or lift them up to see how you can just unpack what that dream is and why. Why do you want that? And what's going to happen if you don't get it, versus also what's going to happen if you get it. But they're not going to get it if it's just up there out of reach. So we make a plan to get there. And then the knowledge part, which you're probably very familiar with, how people share their knowledge. And there's so much untraditional knowledge too that people come into this world with, some kind of a superpower, or, and that's not always in the job description, but it can be a great attribute, can be, something, if they start to share that in the workplace, something they're naturally good at, whether that's organizing or making people laugh, or, there can be so many little attributes, and that's a nice layer. And to bring that into the workplace and start to share that, or even just for kids to start to share the knowledge on social media, that's also really important. Something, it's yours,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it has your personality in it too.
That's the important part, I think, here. Everything I'm hearing you say, it's about your knowledge, but it's also making sure you invoke, like you said, jokes. If you are always bringing humor and levity, you can still share your knowledge, but in a way that's fun and approachable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so great when people know how to do that. Yeah. And then the last step in this is essence. That's like the package, the image, the sort of how you show up. And I'm very visual, but I understand not everyone is, but everyone has some kind of a take or taste on, I think it's very important that we choose what we wear, and we design our homes, and we create our spaces, because we represent that in the world as well. And that's a different form of expression that used to be, you used to be considered stupid if you liked beauty or, fashion, in my era. That was not a intelligent, thing. But I actually didn't care about that. It was part of my story that I was creating. I didn't know I was doing that when I was so young. Now it all makes sense. And that's such a gift, because I've definitely gone through so many ups and downs.
I'm sure. I mean, just even being brave enough to move from Iceland to the States for your education, falling in love, staying here, right? Moving to New York and balancing. I'm also a mom, and just balancing all of the things, right? There's not really balance, but you have to figure out going back to your values. What are your values? How do you make sure that you're imparting them through example to your child or children, as well as your coworkers and your community, to show that you're living your values? But also then, how do you make sure you carve out the right amount of time? And even if something else has to go on the sidelines for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I also I mean, I just really believe in people working with a coach, a mentor, therapist, anyone who can sort of help them with their prioritizing, even just, you know, I don't use the theory of the big rocks theory, but it makes so much sense though. If we're always on the little things, the big rocks are not going to be able to come into the jar afterwards. But working and breaking down this bigger, the big sparkly dream, because it can all be very, very actionable. It just seems so scary when it's up in our heads. As soon as it comes down on the paper or on the, laptop, wherever we want it to live, I am such a believer in writing with pen and paper. So my sheets that when I work with people in person, they're like massive and it's fun. But so getting it out of our head, and then sort of a resetting, like activating the heart, connecting with the brain and understanding where you are, there's certain calmness in organization.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the ways that, because you started this work really, you said during the pandemic, I mean, as a culmination of all of the work that you'd been doing, and then this was the next phase. So I imagine at first you had to find people to work with online.
Yeah. Yeah. It took me at least 2 years to test it and build it out. So I worked with a lot of people and just like people I knew, I would ask to try this on them and small startups for teams and then individuals, just a bunch of people that I know that, when I was testing it. So that's always something I recommend doing before you even put it, even if it's sort of a beta product, I believe, testing it and just trying it out over and over and over and over and over and with vastly different people too, or whoever you're going to want to work with. I work with a lot of creatives and entrepreneurs and that just sort of carries with me that sort of a artistic, but I also work with people in tech. And so there's creativity there. It's always around creativity, I think. Well, people, yeah. So I was going to niche like all the way, but it's been a tough one to do that because I love working with different people. But when it comes to businesses, there are certain businesses I just don't work with. It's not a good match. Then my husband and I started to work with couples too. We was like, hey, we've been together for 21 years and in love to this day. We put ourselves out there with work and, we've just gone through a lot of not just moving across oceans, but just, life, right? So we're like, people always asking us about our story, how we met and what works and, would look up to us in our relationship. So we don't have a lot of, couple clients, but it was like, that's really, really cool to, help people create their, reality, create their film, create, their love film that they can draft up and put it up there in their space and know that they're working towards something together because growing together, we're not therapists, but growing together is so important. Once you start to grow apart a little bit early on, it might just continue to do that. It's hard to come back together.
Truly. Yeah,
Yeah.
truly. It can be very difficult. And the beauty of that is that hopefully in the next relationship you have, you do bring more of yourself and that communication that you might have lost, right? Because you have to value it. But if you can hold on to that first one, like you and your husband have, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
And it's not my first marriage though, just to,
oh.
yeah.
And yeah, often that first person may or may not be the right person for you because you also both change.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. I just believed in so strongly that I would, and people thought I was crazy. I just believed that I would meet my soulmate.
hmm.
And when my first husband, father of my daughter, he and I went separate ways. And I found myself getting excited about being alone. But I'd written down what was really important to me. in meeting my next partner. And that was exactly that, to have someone I can connect with spiritually, intellectually, and humor. That was very, very
Humor is
important.
huge. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't care about six packs and bank account. I just wanted somebody I could be with, when you're writing down the things. And that is, still very important to us too. Yeah.
So, how did you brand yourself, market yourself to find new clients outside of the circles that you were already in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, podcasts. People find me on podcasts and LinkedIn. And I just made sure that I worked on my online presence because you see, I come from the theater and then I'm in marketing and then becoming a coach. I wanted to make sure that the trajectory was clear when people find me online. So I worked on that a lot. And those podcasts are part of that, articles, and that's how people find you. I am working on a new lead gen, and then I'm also a cold pitcher. If I want to work with a team, a certain business, and I know them or know of them, I know their story, I've done the research, I reach out, and that often works.
Because you know the story, because you've
Yeah.
done the work, you've done the research. That makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are different ways when you're still, sort of building and stretching and figuring out who you want to work with. That's always been, my life has always been an audition. So for me to knock on doors is a very, very normal thing. I knocked on doors at Nordstrom when I was started as I was a shop girl, and then I knocked on the door of the CEO, and that's how I got the marketing job out of that. But I had to knock a few doors. But yeah, that's a cool thing here in the States too, that, the open door policy. And in Iceland, it's so small, you can just sort of find people's email or phone number and ask if they can buy them a cup of coffee. And I've done that, for years and years and years. Yeah, I know. It's very old fashioned. It's not like I don't have any fancy funnel, but maybe I will at some point. But this has been working so far. It's more organic.
Yeah, if you don't need the fancy funnel.
Yeah, but hey, I'm not saying no to it. You never
Right.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody is thinking about their next move, their pivot, how they want to move in the world,
Hmm.
what's the one place that you would suggest they start?
Are they pivoting, looking for a new job, or just sort of a resetting? They're looking for clarity.
Yeah, Claire, I think there's so many people who are looking for clarity on, they've done the corporate job.
Yeah.
Maybe their
Yeah.
children are starting to move out of the house. My daughter is
Hmm.
a senior in high school this year, so I'm going through that transition. They've gotten as far as they want to go and work because they do value their time with their family. So because I find a lot of people that I know are in this transition in between phase where they've had success to a certain level. They don't want to, you know, have their work take over their lives. So then now they're looking at, well, what is my story? What do I really want to do?
Right. Yeah. That's a great question. I think it's really great to do something like, the work that I offer, just really sort of a dive into who you have become to this point, and also what you really love to do and what you're good at, and see if you're looking at, maybe you want to become a consultant and work with some businesses like similar to those you have worked with. I mean, or you worked for, now you want to work with them, then you already probably have some kind of a database, or you're aware of those other businesses that you might want to work with. But starting just with yourself, though, to understand what you really want to do, because that you have to find something that really brings you joy, and something you can sort of lose yourself in for hours, because you might have to be building this for a while. It doesn't happen necessarily overnight. So being passionate about what you're offering, let's say you want to start some kind of agency or consultancy, or, solopreneur path, really diving into what the topic is and then how well you connect with it is, I think, the most important thing. I believe that we can do anything with a knowledge that is solid and we're passionate about it. and therefore it is very authentic, then people will find you. Like you were saying earlier, people are asking for you or asking for a certain thing you haven't even offered yet. It's because of your energy and you know what you're offering, and it's a solid idea. I mean, there's so many things that just people, isn't it crazy how people just pop up out of nowhere, you know?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, and also on your website, you have your blog, you have a newsletter, right? And people can learn about different ways to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. My newsletters I love that. I love connecting with people through there. And then I also go to events. I introduce my framework, Evoke, at a big conference, HR conference in Iceland over almost a year ago, less than a year ago. Yeah. And that's still paying off. So, after the pandemic, when we started to like, oh my God, we can go to in-person events. Yeah, networking events are great. Just always being with people, I think is really important. It's very, because we can sort of just be married to our Zoom and computer home alone. It's very easy. We can do everything from there. But it's different to go and meet people in person. So I would always recommend that, to find some kind of a in-person events to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see it has made and it's continuing to make a huge comeback.
Yeah.
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 So I'd love to hear a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto that you live by.
Oh, that's such a good one. I think it's not a mantra or a poem, but I believe, like, I sort of created, live the story, or create the story you want to live. That's just every day. And I am very adamant about like all the details in my life as well, like how I walk and you know what I mean? Like how I walk to the kitchen, my refrigerator is. It sounds like I'm crazy, but I just believe in, if I'm creating my world, my set, I might as well organize what I have power over in a way, because the energy sort of follows everything. But it's always about, I'm always creating my movie. I've been such a big dreamer. I was such a dreamer when I was a child. So, my mom would sometimes say like, you're just living in a movie, aren't you? And like, yeah, I am. And so there is something about that. Storytelling is really everything for me in that way, that creating your story, whether you're a 4-year-old just putting together books and stabling together. I'm still kind of doing that in my, so, oh, yeah,
And
I would
you're
say that's
helping others
storytelling.
be their best selves and show up
Yeah,
in their movies as well.
yeah. And there is an Oscar Wilde quote, be yourself, everyone else is taken. So that's a good one.
Yeah, fantastic. This has been such a fun conversation and also very relaxing. The cadence of your voice and the way that you share is so wonderful.
Oh,
So thank you for
oh,
that.
thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's so sweet. I know. I feel so relaxed. I feel like we're just, yeah, hanging out. I forgot we're actually recording a conversation. I hope it was helpful to your audience, that there's some takeaway for them.
Definitely. And I want to thank everybody for watching this episode, listening to it on your favorite platform, learning from Anna Rosa on some of the things that you can do, perhaps using her method even to figure out who you are, your best self, and how to share your story and journey. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbandamplified.com.